Good afternoon or good evening or whenever you're watching this, I think on YouTube. My name is Paul Maris. As an introduction, I'm the husband of Jill and the father of 5. I won't name them all in order. I might mess them up, but they're all with the same Jill. That's how I introduce myself. I'm a retired IT exec from Aldi with a whole score of experience across my career, which has given me quite a bit of experience, as you'll find out, in the topic that I want to talk to you all about this morning. And it's called Leading in Troubled Times. My wife's a small group leader, and we decided as a small group, with Jill's little nudging, to study the book of Job, which for those of you who know the book of Job well, it's a very, very difficult read for those of us who are going through unexpected or troubled times, is the way I like to talk about it or title it, or challenges in life that are unexpected. Job, of course, experienced quite a few of those, and his reaction was both positive and maybe not so positive. But it seemed to us like in this world, the majority of us, if not all of us, go through troubled times. So I thought that the topic would be appropriate for a general leadership talk like this. When Jerry asked me to do this, we were right in the middle of it, and it seems to be a good topic. In any event, challenges are all around us. In the workplace, I'm sure most of you work with some folks that are a little bit, let's say, difficult to love, as we're called to love. I call them grinders because they grind at me. They can be your boss or your supervisor or colleagues or people that work for you on your team, but there are folks in the work world for sure that are difficult. If you're in a leadership position, you could have troubled times in a different kind of way, in a non-person kind of way, with layoffs and payroll, budget cuts, program cuts, etc. Things that we would probably, if we had a choice, not want to have to deal with in that position. Of course, on the personal side, there's challenges with your personal finances. Unexpected medical issues, for sure, are also something that we deal with as leaders. God made a lot of promises to us in His Word and while He was here on earth. But one of them was not that we would lead a painless life here on earth. And of course, He modeled that very well in His life in the 33 years He walked the face of the planet with us. Talk about troubles. I'm not sure I could deal with that. So to give you a little bit of a background on my experience in challenging times, one of the positions that I had during my career is with Arthur Andersen. And for those of you who are old enough to remember the debacle of Arthur Andersen's issues with Enron, this huge company in Texas, it basically brought down Andersen in about 18 months' time from being one of the big 5, yes, there used to be 5 big 5 accounting firms in the country and in the world, down to now it's just big 4. I lived through that. I had a director position and had responsibility for 45 people, and I had to take them from 45 to 12 in less than 6 months' time. I was the one that sat in the HR conference room, and when your name got called over the speaker in the building, I was there with an HR department lead to give you the news about your layoff and the specifics about that. Second position that I had that gives me a little experience with challenges was that I served as an executive director at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Aurora, which at the time was a multi-campus church. My position was to oversee the staff along with the senior pastor there. And during my time there, we took the church from the east side of Aurora and combined the combination of the 2 different congregations to the west side of Aurora and birthed a fully Hispanic ministry on the east side of Aurora, which caused let's say, some consternation in a 150-year organization where there were several people who had been at the church for generations that didn't quite appreciate our strategy to birth a Hispanic congregation and ministry on the east side of Aurora and leave them to worship in what they thought was a contemporary worship center that didn't quite meet their needs. Both those experiences were interesting in how the Lord worked. The experience at Anderson with Enron and taking my team down led me to the church. The experience at the church taught me a whole bunch about sin inside the church and how to be aware of it and how to deal with that. But it certainly brought me closer to God in those 4 years that I spent on the church staff. So one of the things at the end that I'll close with that's important to me is that no matter how difficult the challenge is, usually the Lord, it seems to me, has an ultimate plan for you, and He is always in control, even though at times it doesn't feel that way. On a more personal note, more challenging times that my wife and I have been through, like I said before, I'm the father of 5 kids. One of our children, as an adult, experienced a very, very difficult situation with drugs. He was a drug addict and became a drug addict, and it was difficult for us as parents to figure out how to deal with that. We were certainly wondering why God would put him through that misery and put us through it on the sidelines with him. Recently, he has made an attempt to change, to beat that habit that he has. He called us last year, about a week after I came out of a major surgery, and said that he wanted to check himself into a rehab center. And so the Lord was pushing me out of bed to get in the car and drive that boy home. I thought of the prodigal son more over the last year and a half, more than I've ever thought of that story before, to guide me away from some of my natural anger and maybe some of the things that Satan was trying to tell me about that situation, and tried to forgive and love a little bit more. And then on a very personal note, back to that surgery, I've dealt over the last year with a kidney cancer diagnosis that thankfully has turned out well so far, but for the 3 months after the diagnosis, forced me and Jill really to face death in the face for about 3 months, up until the surgery and the successful surgery, the removal of the kidney that had the tumor, and we found out that the cancer had not spread to other organs, or at least at this time hasn't spread to other organs in my body. But for those 3 months, we were planning on how Jill was going to survive after the kidney cancer killed me. During all those times, all of those experiences that I look back on now, Satan was at work with me. And he was at work with me diligently, asking me questions like Job's wife and Job's friends were asking him during his time of suffering. Like, where is your God now? He's left you alone. What must have you have done in your life to deserve whatever the case was at the time, especially with the kidney cancer? I had a difficult time with that. What have I done to deserve this, and where is God? He reminded me over and over of past sins that I've committed in my life, and tried to convince me that my fate was a result of the actions that I took in my life. Getting through that's difficult. One of the key questions that I continually ask myself through the professional struggles and through the personal struggles, especially with Brian and the cancer, was, what am I supposed to learn from this situation, Lord? What are you trying to teach me? How is it going to work out well for those around me or for me? And how can I behave in a way that glorifies you? Those are the three questions. So in preparation for this, I looked up some Bible verses, and they came pretty easily. Now, I will admit that my new friend ChatGPT helped me find these Bible verses. It's an amazing tool for those of you who want to study Scripture over some specific areas in your life. I would highly recommend that you check out and start to learn how to use that AI. But here's some things that I found. What I needed for myself. The command from Joshua to not be afraid. Do not fear, do not be afraid is found all over Scripture. Isaiah 4:10, so do not fear, for I am with you. Also, trust in the Lord and not in your own ways or your own understanding. That Bible verse rings true to me during those different struggles that I had and challenges that I had in life. And then the final verse that I took upon myself as something to motivate me to glorify God was James 1:2, where it says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life." That perseverance was a gift from the Lord, and that scripture really helped me through some of those things that I experienced. At Arthur, I was in that HR room letting people know that their jobs were going to be no longer available. They were being let go. I thought to myself as a leader, and for those of you who are leaders at work, to be shepherds of God's flock, to keep in mind that you're responsible to provide and protect and steer them. So that was helpful, because in those conversations, showing not only empathy, but giving direction towards resources that the firm had available for them to find extra work. We gave them counselors to help write resumes to find something in an unexpected way. And it helped me feel as though I just wasn't cutting a line, but I was letting them go in a way that the Lord would be glorified. As a dad, as I mentioned before, the prodigal son story and the forgiving father was something that I read over and over and over and prayed about every time we saw Brian and every time we tried to help direct him and hold his hand through the turmoil that he's experiencing. And as a parent, I don't know if our kids ever really understand that we feel the pain that they're going through, maybe not as equally, but boy, was it a difficult time for us as well. So to be there and support him as he tried to break free of the clutches of those drugs was something that was important for me. Also, I read Ephesians 6:4 came up as well, and this is something that I needed to work on, and that I think really speaks to me, is when it says to fathers not to provoke your children to anger, but to point them towards the Lord. In my own kind of paraphrased way, was an important thing for me to remember when we were dealing with that challenge together. As a church leader, Peter's question to the Lord about how many times do we forgive? Because at the time it felt like the church body itself was up in rebellion with the selling of the building that was built in 1911 that they had been raised in and never left until their 70s and 80s. They had a difficult time leading that building. So a forgiving spirit was important in that leadership role with the church. And finally, with the cancer diagnosis, and during the 3 months that I was convinced that the Lord that I was going home to meet the Lord. I was convinced of it, actually. It's a very strange thing. I wanted to prepare Jill for that, what I thought was an inevitability. I prepared her with all the things in the marriage that I'm responsible for. She knew where to go for all the financial information, where to go for all the legal information. I also set up some friends of mine, some good friends that I trusted, writing an email and calling 4 of them to help them understand what the situation with my son was and how he needed a fatherly male figure in his life to help continue to walk that path to free him from drugs. So I was preparing the family for what I thought was an inevitable death on my part. I read Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. I came up and talked with the Lord quite a bit about how this situation in my life might help the kids or people that are in my circle. That was an encouragement during that challenging time. And 1 Timothy 5:8, but if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for his own household, he has denied the faith. It was a motivation for me to prepare my family, my entire family, for if I was to unexpectedly die. So, in closing, as leaders, troubled times are definitely inevitable. It's built into the fallen world that we currently exist in. Be aware of the lies and the attacks that Satan will use to try to bring you down during those challenging times. And be prepared to lean into Scripture and the promises God has made to us to fight that and defend yourself from the evil one. Never face the test alone. Surround yourself with good counsel, both family and friends who you can lean on when maybe you're not feeling up to the perseverance by yourself. And continuously ask the question, what can I learn from the Lord during this situation? What is he trying to prepare me for or teach me? And how in all of it can he be glorified? And I think those things will inevitably help you through any situation that you're facing. They certainly did for me. Appreciate your time. If you've made it to the end and you've watched the whole thing, I hope you've learned or caught a little bit of glimpse of what those troubled times were like for me and can apply it to your situation. God bless you and keep you during troubled times that you're facing or will inevitably face in the near future. Thanks.